We are super excited to be talking to Failureboys Productions today.
Yep.
Makers of Attack of the Tatty Bogle.
So we brought that to you last week, and everything fell into place, and we were lucky enough to talk to these guys, and they're really great.
They are. They were so delightful to talk to.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
All right.
So, hey, let's just get into it.
Yeah.
Because it's that good.
Let's go.
All right, B-Siders, we are here with Pete Marcy, Joe Marcy, Adam Anderson, and Chris Marcy. They are the force behind Failureboys Productions and the wonderful creative force that brought us Tatty Bogle.
Attack of the Tatty Bogle.
Attack of the Tatty Bogle.
Yeah.
Tatty Bogle just sticks in my head.
We'll correct you right there.
Uh-oh.
Tatty Bogle.
Okay.
Bogle.
Yeah.
Bogle.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was going to be a question.
Yeah.
All right.
Because we're
Thank you.
We're Dungeons and Dragons players, and there is a creature called a boggle, and I thought
spelled the same way.
2 G's.
Yeah.
And so that's where I thought, let's find out about that. But now we know Tatty Bogle.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
It's Scottish slang for potato ghost, and we just thought it was a cool.
We had to look that up. Because we had to know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm saying it's Bogle, but I guess I'm not 100% sure. But that's how we pronounce it.
Oh, that'll work. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Moving forward. Bogle.
Could you guys go back and could you fix the episode that you already did and just fix that?
All right. So a couple of you have listened to the episode or some of it. We had reached out to Pete first, saying that we just loved this film, and we had to know more, and we're so very thankful that we get to talk to you guys. I guess just like a basic question: where did this come from? The journey to this particular film. What was the thought, the inspiration? And you can go back as.
Do you want the long version?
Sure.
Yeah.
Bring it.
So who do you think is most equipped to talk about John Belushi origins?
Yeah, it was about 4 or 5.
I can.
All right, Chris, go for it.
So we went on a trip to the Lake of the Woods in, I don't know, when I was 12, 13. And it was me and Pete and Joe and a bunch of other families and the
Adam.
parent and Adam. All right. And a bunch of the parents had come up with this idea to scare us. We didn't know it was fake at the time, but there was a killer who had escaped prison or something, and he was living on an island in the Lake of the Woods, and his name was John Belushi. And they made a T-shirt saying John Belushi lives, and my mom even drew like a wanted poster of him. And so just the scary idea of a killer who was on the island, and years later, we thought it'd be fun to make a movie about that. I wrote a really bad script, kind of detailing this thing. A bunch of people go on a canoe trip in the islands, and then he shows up and kills them. And I did a sketch of what he would look like. And the sketch, I wish I could have shown you something in an email, but it was pretty damn close to what you would eventually see in Tatty Bogle. So that was the visual start of it.
Okay.
And, I guess you guys can take it from there.
That sounds like a really elaborate prank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Chris, you skipped over the part where we found the wanted poster in the basement. Did we all find it together, or did you guys find it and show me? I can't remember. It's so long
I don't
ago.
remember.
Like, we were kids, but
I have no memory of that. No.
It was like finding out, once and for all that Santa Claus is not real. Well, if there are kids listening, I don't want to spoil anything.
They better not be listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, did Chris, I had to replug in my headphones, did Chris talk at all about the kind of what kind of story that would have been, the John Belushi script? Do you want to talk about that at all, Chris, or not? That was one of those 20 years later, and the killer was one of the people.
All I can
Yeah.
really remember is that it was going to start in the past, and one of the kids gets abducted and disappears. And so it's going to kind of have this haunting feel of whatever happened to this kid. We think John Belushi got him. And then as the movie would finish, you'd probably find the lair and maybe like the remains of the kid. And I don't really remember much beyond that other than lots of bad dialogue. So, yeah.
Yeah, I went through a couple iterations, didn't it? And there was one where you kind of modeled it after Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, right. The
Right, and
Arvin.
That one wasn't bad. It was kind of centered around a fishing tournament up in the Lake of the Woods. That one was
Right.
better. But ultimately, we kind of shied away from all of that. And I don't remember how exactly, but we ultimately just settled on... So we did a movie called Firefly, shot it in 2002, 2003, and then it had a pretty good festival run in 2005, 2006.
Mhm.
And we hadn't done anything, since we shot it, and we were coming up with, ideas for what the next movie would be, and we all kind of settled on a horror movie. We just thought, and maybe you guys can remember better than I can, but that it would be easy, and we just kind of wanted to pump something out. And I remember we met in Chris's apartment and started talking through ideas, and we wanted it to be a very moody piece, and I don't know. Can you guys remember that period? This was so long ago. This was 2007 when we were doing this, so
Yeah.
it's all kind of foggy right now.
What I remember, this is Joe. I remember after Firefly had kind of done its year or 2 years of festival kind of runs, it premiered at Cinevegas in 2005, and then maybe a couple other ones. But then the next year, we cut out about 9 minutes of that movie, and it kind of had a nice secondary, run or whatever. But we had kind of been sitting around and felt a little bit restless, and we just wanted to get back in action to kind of kickstart ourselves creatively. And me, Pete, and Chris all have a family cabin. Adam has a family cabin. Both actually are locations in the movie. And we talked a lot about just kind of what scared you growing up and what's scary about being alone. So I think a lot of those ideas work themselves into the story. And yeah, we thought it was going to be quick and easy and fun. And we're like, let's just write something quick, shoot it quick, cut it quick, and hey, then we got a second feature out.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing that we really admired about the film was that well, first of all, it could have been longer. We could have had more. We would have ate that up. But
Yeah.
Do you mean that though?
Yeah, really.
oh yeah, we have gone on about we do, so we cover B movies in general, but we do a lot of horror on here because horror it's the easiest genre to get into when you're doing independent film. And because you can do horror without any effects, really. You can do the creepy kind of horror. Plus we just love horror movies. So there's a lot that we get into, but a lot of things as of late have left us flat because there's been a turn where you need to spend an inordinate amount of time on backstory that has nothing to do with anything really. When we sit and watch a slasher, or we know we want some sort of just brutal, violent blood fest, I'm not terribly interested in this guy's childhood and all the characters back to when they were 3. We like to see it hit hard. And that was one of the things about this. Yeah, it was a nice, gentle setup. And we were just speechless when he walked in, and I'm like, oh, all right. So here's the guy with the masks. Something's going to start. And it wasn't any long drawn out thing, but bam. I'm like, oh shit, we're in it. Yes. And it just didn't stop after that. And it was really, it really was refreshing, and it was fun because it's just like hitting, pulling the gun, bam, go. And the race is on, and it was a full sprint to the end. Was there anything that you guys talked about or decided on how to introduce this, the Taddy Bogle?
I know we talked about not wanting to give a backstory. There were, I don't know if we ever had it in the script where there was any explanation of what this guy is and why he's doing what he's doing, but ultimately we all agreed to just stay away from that because I know, just speaking for myself, I hate that in movies. I think, especially horror movies, when there's a lot of explanation for why someone is evil, why they're doing the things they're doing.
Right.
I just don't. I guess I'm kind of like I don't care about that. I don't see a place for that in horror movies. And so I think, and maybe others thought differently, but I think that we all just wanted to focus on the reality of what it would be like if this started happening at a cabin. We wanted a sense of realism to it.
It worked.
Yeah, I think we all agreed on that, but people have certainly complained about there not being an explanation at the end, which we've always thought is kind of funny. I mean, you guys, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but not a lot of people like the movie, so it's nice that someone.
Well, that makes me wonder, though. I mean, not. I mean, this is a horror podcast, so this is no offense, but I agree with what you're saying about the last 10 years because I feel like with an example like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, part of why it's scary is how like blanket and velvety and deep the blacks are, and just kind of how gritty and gross it is. And horror films have kind of become, they feel kind of like very, very formulaic. And I feel like when people's expectations aren't met, specifically like really rabid horror fans, I feel like that can be very disappointing, maybe more than other genres where it's like, this isn't what I expected. There's not a lot of gore. There's not day for night. It's not, color corrected to look, teal and orange. It's a very,
right.
I don't know. That was intentional, I think, and in part because we didn't have the budget for, the monetary or time budget to like set up lighting, but also we just didn't really like that look. We thought it would be scarier to have it be a little bit more muted.
We shot it. We shot it on the DVX 100, so it was a mini DV camera that we, at the time we shot Firefly that had just come out, and we were just amazed that we could actually shoot at 24 frames per second, and as many independent filmmakers were at the time. But this was 5 years later, I guess, and some HD cameras had started coming out, and we decided to shoot one more with the DVX, and part of that decision was that we wanted it to be kind of not cheap looking necessarily, but just kind of lo-fi, I guess, for lack of a better term, just
right.
Kind of gritty and grainy. And what's funny, I don't think this is true for everyone, but I think now when 10 years later, when we were finally finished with it, I actually think that kind of helps the movie a little bit, that it's really, the visual images is kind of low quality, and now it's, at least for me, it's not really impressive anymore to see a movie that's crisp and clean. It's not a bad thing. It's just that, back in the 2007, that would have been really impressive because still a lot of low budget productions couldn't afford to get an image that was so crisp and clean. Whereas now that's not really an indication of a
right.
high production quality.
Yeah, and I think because we have all people are filming in 4K, and we have all these like fancy new TVs with really great graphics, that the super crisp, clean look it's no longer something that's super novel, and it no longer has that like value to it.
Yeah, it has a sterility to it. We spoke with Hilton Ruiz, who did Zombie with a Shotgun, and he brought up the fact that like everything on Netflix, all the Netflix stuff looks like they just walked from set to set with the same camera and the same setup and just, shot everybody's scenes and stuff, because every single thing on there looks the same. And that's kind of what's been coming out. And what your choice was perfect, because one thing, we had a discussion about horror movies, going all the way back to the 30s. There's a certain feel to the old horror movies and all the way up through the 70s. Like Halloween, you watch it on its original format, and it has that feel to it. You watch the 4K digitally remastered, cleaned up version, it doesn't feel the same.
Right. The original is grittier and grainier and tonally darker. And I think with the ability to film in 4K and have this super clean, crisp imagery, like people have sort of forgotten that, visual storytelling is an art form, and the camera that you use, the kind of way that you make it look on film is part of the storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I tell you what, you guys did great. I mean, that's one thing I commented on in the episode was the lighting. Indie films don't have, $250,000 for lighting equipment to, light night forests and stuff. But all your guys' stuff looked really good. And it brought in, that was that whole, like the original Friday the 13th. Part of what made that really great was that feeling of almost claustrophobic in a wide open forest at night. It's right. Dark. You can only see what you can see, from here to 15 feet, and depending on what you have for a flashlight. It was really just fun.
Right. Well, I'm glad you had that reaction. Yeah, because I know that I'm sure there are plenty of people who would see it and say that it definitely does not look great. But I think. Yeah, what we're basically saying is that for the story, the look of it works, and I think there is something to that we had these fluorescent lights. We didn't have battery powered lights or LED lights that could last several hours. We had long extension cords and bought a generator during the film and had these fluorescent lights that we'd try to put up on a ladder or hang on branches of trees and stuff, and it would only light this small pocket of the forest, and we'd try to make it work somehow. And maybe that works to our advantage in certain scenes where like you said, you can't see far out into the forest. You can just kind of see the small pocket, and then beyond that there's just the blackness. So
right.
Pete, you should mention real quick the camera upgrade that you were trying to make from Firefly to Tatty Bogle. Didn't that end up being kind of a setback, and you had to fix it in post production?
Oh, sure. Just a minor thing. Yeah, I mean, we shot on the DVX 100, so it's basically standard definition, and we letterboxed Firefly, so we took away even more resolution. By cropping it. And in this movie, I bought the 16:9 anamorphic adapter to put on the camera so that I could squeeze the image and fit it on the full frame, so it was full standard definition resolution this time. But it also cut out like a stop of light. So we're shooting most of the movie at night outdoors, and so what was tough to light originally got even tougher with missing that stop of light. And
yes,
honestly, when I first started putting the footage together, I thought, what the hell did we do? Like this, I can't even see what's going on. This is unusable. And thankfully, I discovered some software that can clean up video and make it at least watchable, where you notice the actors more than you notice the grain. So didn't good learning lesson, but ultimately I think the footage, maybe as bad as it looks right now, it's 10 times better than I thought it was going to be when we wrapped the movie.
It was even worse.
Yes.
But be grateful.
Well, and it's funny because we've talked with some folks about film. A lot of people got started doing their little shorts and independent films with film because digital wasn't really there, wasn't an option at the time. And it's funny because film can be more forgiving because you can take those negatives and what happened to you. You can look at it and you go, "Whoa, this is super dark." Well, we can fix that with just a slight upgrade in exposure, run a new print, and there we go. Yeah. Cut that section in anyway. With video, it's I don't know. I mean, it's there and it's what's going to happen, and the forgivability factor is pretty awesome because you can do something like that. I'm working on a short film that we did it's 4 years later, trying to do color matching between these. The files I got back were destructively edited, so there's no like key component between them. But that's something you just can't do without all these little plugins. How has that changed your perception? Like when you're thinking of projects, and so you're thinking of shooting, something, because you weren't thinking about it then because it hadn't happened yet. But after that, how did that have any kind of effect? Like, oh, well, we have some leeway with this, or, if we get this close enough, I can go in and scrub something out, make it brighter, make it clearer.
I think what it did for us is that, the very next movie we shot, which was a far different movie, is a romantic comedy. We upgraded the camera, discovered interchangeable lenses, and that you could open it up to f1.8, and man, you could shoot in so much lower light. And so I think I was just haunted by it and knew that like I'm never going to make that mistake again. But I guess what it's given me is that if there's any dark scene that I ever shoot now, I think, well, if I had to fix Taddy Bogle's footage, this is no problem. So,
okay. What brought you guys into this? That's one of our favorite questions, is asking anybody what makes you get into filmmaking, because it's a steep climb for everybody that I mean it's a lot of hard work, and well, like for this, the post-production time was extraordinary, and that's getting to be pretty common amongst people we've been talking to. You finally get the funding, or you get your money together, or if it's out of pocket, you get everything done that you can, and then you're like, oh, and then all of a sudden that post-production ghost looms over you forever. But what brought you guys into this realm?
Well, I think it started, Adam, when you guys got a camera.
Yeah, so my family got a camera it was probably like Christmas of 1989, 1990, and not everybody had one then, so it was a big deal. And my brother and I were, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Rocky fans, and we made movies all the time. And then they were like basically extended fight scenes, and they had no plot, but this is what we did. Really, through high school, we made these movies that were just fight scenes. And it got to the point where we started putting a little bit of plot into them, and they would be, a half hour or 45 minutes. We would do like one summer project. And then I think we all, high school ended, and Pete was really the only one who actually went to film school. And then we kind of got together later on. Pete wanted to kind of make his first like big ambitious movie, and we all were absolutely on board because we were super excited about it. So that kind of brought us back together to finally. There were a couple before that, like Cabin, Salamander.
We kind of never stopped. Made about one a year, pretty much. In the summers when we'd come back from college and stuff. So
nice.
That's fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What?
So the four of you are the production company, right?
Yep.
Okay. So who kind of does what in the production company? Who's like the writer, and who's the guy who's really good at figuring stuff out and getting locations,
logistics?
Like, do you guys kind of divide that equally, or do you each have your own specialties?
I think it varies from project to project, and we actually haven't worked together in a long time, and that kind of goes back to the post-production piece, where it kind of was all something that I took on, and that's why it took so long. And throughout that time, life happens, and we kind of do our own things. But I think when we were making a movie every couple of years, it was we'd all have ideas, and there are various writers based on, just the project. Like Firefly, Chris and I wrote the script. Teddy Bogle, we all came up with the story. Adam, Joe, and I are the ones that worked on the actual screenplay. And then the romantic comedy was something that I wrote myself. And, I think there are, some of us have, strengths that others don't. Like I know Adam, I would say, kind of takes the lead when it comes to producing and getting locations and things like that. But it's certainly something that all of us do as well. And
that's really a big scramble. It's like anybody who can find something or find an actor or a location and scheduling has always been really tough because it's not. I mean, it was pretty disorganized for Teddy Bogle. I mean, I guess I'm comparing it to like what Pete is doing now. Like Pete's wife Lindsay produced 2 movies that they just shot, and I was really amazed at how well organized her production was. Just like everything was in an Excel spreadsheet, and she would mark everything off when it was complete, and it was like, Jesus, we were really disorganized the way we did movies back in, the early 2000s, late 2000s.
Yeah, I think we maybe felt like it gave us a bit of street cred or took pride in kind of letting it happen organically or something, but it probably would have helped to assign and like have storyboarding and producers. And like, for instance, on Teddy Bogle, it was like, when are we going to shoot this? Let's shoot this over 10 days or 18 days or whatever. And then, okay, we need kind of this many people, this many basic characters. And then, okay, break. And everyone just kind of went off and said, okay, this person will do it. This person will volunteer their time. Because we didn't have any money, so we're just asking people to give up their, evenings and weekends and holidays and stuff. So I think like a lot of the extras and smaller roles were friends of mine. Pete's doing all the post-production. A lot of the props are Chris's. The locations are just locations that our family owns, or families own. And we just kind of go around begging and doing things where we can find them.
Is there anything percolating? I mean, that's going to bring you guys together again, or is it, we fully understand the life happens, and there's a lot of folks out there who think, oh, indie filmmakers, you're living the life. Not really. We get up, we go to work. That's why we're doing this on a Saturday, because during the week it's murderous to find time to try and do anything, much less put time in for a film. But I mean, do you guys have anything on the horizon to all come together, or is it just kind of, if it happens, it happens?
Yeah, there's nothing on the horizon. There's no project that we're working on right now. I know Adam just mentioned I shot a couple movies this past year, and Adam's the lead in one of them, and Chris has a minor role in the other one. So there's a little bit of a reunion there, but I think we've just we've established our careers and our, the different paths we're on, and Joe's animating now, and, Chris is driving a truck, as we can all see.
Yep.
So it's, there's nothing in the works right now, but I know recently, a few years ago, I quit my mortgage job and focused on movies again, and that's why Teddy Bogle is finished, because I never found the time to complete all the post-production for it until I left my job. So I'm trying to focus on filmmaking right now, but there's no Failureboys project in the works right now.
Well, it happens.
But I think there might be in the future. Just personally, I could us working on something in the next
it's
decade.
It's not like it's a closed door. It's just like, I mean, the way I think of it is like I've kind of gotten to the point where a lot of stuff I've done with film has fallen off, but I still like always think, well, I'd like to write a good screenplay someday, and if I had someone shoot it, I would of course hand it to Pete, because it's, he's still making movies and he makes good movies. So
well, we'll keep our fingers crossed, because one of the things that works is, the dynamic You can. So like Pete, you're making films, and it's one of those things when you're casting, you have to have people who, the actors have to have a dynamic together on screen. Doesn't matter how good they are at the part, they got to sell it at that level. But from the creative side, the dynamic that you guys have, I think would swell into, something that you did together, especially at this stage, because, it's one of those things, more mature, a little more life experience. Like, Adam said, the spreadsheet bit, hey, we could do this neatly. So yeah, I mean, we'll keep our fingers crossed, because I think, and I hope that you guys are able to do something.
I will say, there are 2 more feature films that it's on me. I have to get them available and streaming. Just kind of working through some of the final forms and whatnot to get them out there. But so
what are these? We do have genre-wise?
Genre-wise, Firefly is a sort of sci-fi thriller. Hard to define, but I guess I'd put it as a kind of sci-fi thriller that has some drama and comedy in it. And then Shingle Life. The Shingle Life is a romantic comedy, and those all have all of us in the films and a lot of the same actors that you see in Teddy Bogle.
But these aren't the ones you shot recently, though. Not
the ones I shot recently.
Okay,
no, those are I'm editing right now and hope to have them done by the end of this year.
Okay. And what are those genre-wise, or do you not want to give that out?
Those, no, I can. One of them is a sort of a fantasy thriller, and the other one is a drama comedy.
Okay. I have to ask. I'll tell you why in a second. Fantasy thriller. So by fantasy, what realm does that? Do you want people's minds to get into? Are you talking, Lord of the Rings fantasy?
No.
Or just far out but not sci-fi fantasy?
Far out but not sci-fi.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Good way to put it. Yeah, kind of of today's world, but with maybe a supernatural element added.
Okay. I can buy that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to have to yell at you in an interview, because fantasy. If you sit back and you just go through Prime, Hulu, Amazon, and you go through fantasy, if they have it, Hulu doesn't even have a fantasy genre on the list. We're finding things on there that are neither fantasy, sci-fi, anything. It's incredible the loose definition they've given these genres these days. So I was just curious.
When I was in high school, there was a class called, I think it was mostly sci-fi genre books, but it was called speculative fiction, and I always liked that term. It'd be nice if there was a kind of a genre of our world, but this is tweaked, or this is a little bit different. So maybe it's, I don't know, that seems maybe closer to it than fantasy.
I think in Hollywood they call it grounded sci-fi. Some of the producers we've talked to that's the big thing, is everyone's like sci-fi. So you go up to them and you start to talk to them about sci-fi, and then they'll be like, oh no, we want grounded sci-fi, which means everything right now is exactly the same, except he has something magical in his fingertip. Science or whatever. Okay.
Do you think a lot of that is just trying to identify the trend right now, like Black Mirror, and then we basically want to do a Black Mirror, and that's what they're calling it? Or do you think it's...
I think for a long time, sci-fi got kind of a rough ride. It was sort of like packaged and put away, and people weren't really getting, like the Star Trek films were waning as they kept coming out. Star Wars had been gone forever and ever. Nobody was really doing these epic sci-fi films anymore that were way out there. So they needed to bring it. I think the audiences are just, I don't want to have to think. I don't want to have to get to know all this. Like we watched Altered Carbon when they released that on Netflix. And I looked at it and my first thought was, oh my God, I wonder how bad this is going to do. Because there's a lot visually, a lot to take in. And then, they're trying to explain as much as they can to the audience so what all this stuff is about. And I think audiences just got used to having stuff spoon-fed to them in tiny increments. And, a grounded sci-fi, what do you have to think about? Nothing. The guy's driving a Ford, You know, he lives in a 3-bedroom house in a subdivision that all resonates with people. Oh, but wait, he has a magic wand. Okay. All I have to do is I have to concentrate on the wand. And hopefully they'll explain it to me. But that's the only thing that's out of place here. Right. Kind of thing. Right. So I think it is the trend. But I think it's shifting now.
Well, I think part of it is a trend, and part of it is budget conscious decisions on the part of production studios.
That is true too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because effects are pretty easy to animate.
Because if you try to pitch a sci-fi to a creative executive, they're going to go, "Ooh, that's really expensive." But if you're like, "It's a grounded sci-fi," they're like, "Oh."
Right.
We have a sci-fi pilot, and we've had a number of producers tell us this is awesome, but it's super expensive.
It's not grounded at all.
And it's way in the future, different world, everything. And, not being anybody, I mean, we're nobodies, nobody's going to put in however much money. It's funny. At a convention, I was talking with Kevin Sorbo about the pilot, because we had him sign the script.
I love that guy.
TV Hercules from Mound.
Yeah.
Mound, Minnesota, yeah.
And he's like, so how much would this cost per episode? Like, I don't even know, man. Where do you even come up with that? I couldn't tell you.
That's right. A lot.
It's a series that takes place mostly on the ocean, so I'm guessing you're going to have some really big sets to put blue screen behind, unless you're going to film it on the ocean, Kevin Costner style, which is enormously expensive.
Yeah. Worth it.
Grounded sci-fi works because you just need a 3-bedroom house, you need a Ford automobile, and that's it. And then you run to the dime store and you pick up a plastic wand, bam, movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense with indie, versions of it too, because I think before Firefly was making its festival stuff, but even after that, I think we had very big heads. I don't know if a lot of people you interview have kind of reflected this, but we kind of all thought we're going to be famous. We're now in. So the next kind of huge, epic, sprawling idea we have, that's just going to go into production. And then you just realize how big of an undertaking anything creative is, and that if you're not paid up front, you're not gonna start building some epic fantasy world. It's just not. You couldn't stay sane and do that. So I think there's another part of it just to preserve your own sanity, or think this could possibly be produced, or we could possibly do a pilot of this without going $1 million into debt.
Yeah.
Yep. We see a lot of calls for scripts under 1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, Pete, probably you are the most qualified out of everyone on this call to, give an estimate, like what could $1 million buy you, for a film of A, B, C, or D genre, because I have no idea. I know the short film we cost us a couple grand out of pocket. And that's with everyone working for free.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm so. I don't know if I am qualified to say it, because I every movie we've done has been made for 10,000 or less. Even the 2 that I shot recently were just very micro budget, and but I know I like to do a lot of aspects of filmmaking, including visual effects and sound design and all of the things that typically would be where you'd hire an effect something to do the work, and that's where it could get pretty expensive. So I like to see what I can do. I'll invest the money in software and then learn it and try to to work things out on my own with as far as visual effects or other elements that are typically pretty expensive for in the filmmaking process. So that's kind of where I save money. And so if I hear $1 million and I think, I don't know if I could even spend $1 million on whatever I would create, but I think if I had $50,000, that would be incredible, to be able to hire some people to help out with certain aspects of the production. But so to me, it's like I'm in the, 5 digits. That's where my head is, and when I'm thinking of filmmaking. So I think of $1 million, and I just think I don't know what how would you? It almost seems too complicated to me. How would you? What do you do with all that money? Seem to you'd have to hire someone else to manage your production and
Well, I think in Hollywood, I think it's easy to spend that kind of money because you're paying union rates, right?
Yes.
But jumping back, the way you said, you spend about $10,000. It's a tone that we hear from everybody, like, I know it's not a lot of money, and in terms of film production, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing: like we spoke with Anton Doiron in Alaska, and he did Space Trucker Bruce, and we love that film, and he all out of pocket about $10,000, but he built all these sets.
It's very homemade looking,
but it rocks. And it's funny. I think indie filmmakers know how to actually spend money. It's that whole thing. You do the best with what you've got. But we've seen some indie films that have been verified at like 100,000, 150, 200,000. And we're looking at it and we're like, where did the money go? Is the guy driving like a new Lexus? And because it didn't go into the equipment, and it certainly didn't go into production.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, they're really, especially nowadays with how cheap, cameras are. It's kind of hard to tell a difference between a $10,000 production and a $500,000 production a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know if this is too far of a stretch, but I almost feel like we have kind of a contempt for something that looks really polished too. Like when we try to get things into festivals, that one of our conversations was always like, "Oh my God, well, hopefully this will make the investors ask what could they do with $1 million." But yeah, like Pete said, I don't even know what we'd do with more than $100,000, and
we'd probably hire a famous actor. That's who'd get most of the money. Yeah. Realistically,
Get Michael Keaton.
Yeah, you see this indie film that Michael Keaton just did? Holy shit, it's awesome. Yeah, exactly. So,
and to Pete's point, I listened to your podcast about this, and the deer outside the tent.
Oh yes,
that was all CG. That was all Pete.
Really?
That was footage of a deer that I rotoscoped frame by frame, and then color corrected to fit into the shot. Yeah, that was time consuming and not fun to do, and I would never do it again. But
yeah, we didn't hire a deer handler for that.
Well, it looked great.
Yeah,
well, good. I think it works because it's a standard definition, and you can't really see the that it doesn't quite integrate with the scene. But
I thought it worked really good because it made the reason we were on about it for me was it made me think of the old TV show Northern Exposure. In the opening credits, they have a moose walking down the street, and it's because a moose actually wandered on set that day. And they just shot it and just let it. It was there for like an hour. They're like, nobody bug it. He'll leave. Yeah. And I thought, wow, is this one of those where you're getting set up? All of a sudden, the buck doesn't care.
Well, I'm glad it works. Because, I think as we were shooting it, didn't quite know how we'd make that work. Because it's supposed to be the deer making the sounds outside of the tent ultimately. But, didn't even have the footage yet to rotoscope.
Well done. Going back to what Joe said about festivals and the polished look, I think there is almost a bias for something looking too polished because, I think it falls back into what we were talking about earlier, that very formulaic, these horror movies and stuff, or any production really. If it has a certain look, it usually ties into that. Oh, this is one of those cookie cutter. It's got this happens here, this happens here, this happens here. You change the names, and you change the name of the town, and it's a different movie, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed, I don't remember who it was. I was watching an interview with some filmmakers, and they were talking about things like Sundance, where Sundance these days films like Kevin Smith's Clerks would never have made it in, because the things that make it there are these big dollar productions that they're just hoping to get a distribution deal.
Yeah.
It's almost like a showcase now. Not having done the smaller circuits, I mean, is that kind of the sense of the smaller festivals doing that kind of thing, where it's not so much a celebration of, independent filmmaking beating the odds and getting that work done, as compared to, everybody's lined up for their NBA draft. They're just waiting to get picked.
I don't know. I mean, I think Firefly went to about 10 festivals, and, at the time, this was 2005 through 2007, and I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I know that the number of submissions to festivals has at least doubled, probably tripled, if not more. So there's just so much content out there that's being submitted to festivals that I don't even know how people get through all the submissions with, the volunteers they have. And I know that's a filmmaker fear, where you submit your film and, does anyone even watch it?
Right.
They watch past the first 5 minutes and all that. And I mean, when we submitted Firefly to Sundance, we had that fear, especially because Firefly, shot on mini DV, and it opens actually with a sequence that's a purposefully bad movie made by one of the characters in the movie. And so we were worried that, no one's even going to make it past the first couple minutes of this, because they're going to think this is the movie and they're going to shut it off. But, it didn't get into Sundance. But the thing is, a couple months, like a month after the Sundance Film Festival that year, I got an email from the head programmer at Sundance who said he saw Firefly and thought it was great, and they didn't have a room for it in the festival, but that's how we got the invitation to Cinevegas. So that gave me a lot of confidence that there are people, even the biggest festivals, who do watch your movie, who do, make a decision based on the quality of the film. I think I can't comment on every festival, but I've actually been kind of surprised and pleased by, how much attention, our small movie and our small movies have received from certain festivals. So, I guess I'm not too worried about what gets accepted and what doesn't, as far as big budgets. But I guess I will say that Sundance, it seems, that has kind of gone in the direction of accepting, more like large budget films, but that I look at and think that's not an independent film. But, I think there's just so much content out there that, well, I guess I've kind of lost my point here, but I don't know. I guess I don't know. I haven't had too much interaction with festivals recently to really be able to comment on a trend, I guess.
Okay.
I can
back then you had to go to a film festival to really see indie movies. I mean, it's weird how that's changed, and I'm surprised. Pete, you said that submissions have tripled.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think I've read articles on just how many. Yeah, but definitely, maybe back in the day, I don't know, 1%, 4%, whatever submissions would get accepted. Now it's under that, under 1%.
It's just weird to me because you don't really need a film festival anymore to get distribution, because you can just go directly to Prime.
Yeah,
Right.
Yep.
Right, but if you want to get like a lot of money for your distribution, you want it to go to those big distro companies rather than like self-distribution.
And get a couple
sell
pennies.
Totally sell out.
Well, also something I've wondered, I mean, especially Adam and Pete have both hinted at the, I guess, response to Taddy Bogle, to bring it back to us. I think finding a distributor probably really helps with how to package and prepare a prospective viewer for the experience. And one thing that I was thinking when Pete was describing, like just how many applicants there are, it does feel a little bit like maybe that's why so many indie films are so polished. They're just kind of ticking all the boxes of what's going to make someone turn this off in the first 3 minutes. Okay, I have to eliminate all of those things, all of those weaknesses.
Yeah.
And so they focus on the kind of the packaging. Whereas we, I think, probably focused a little bit more on what we're sick of seeing. And I think that's actually what drives a lot of the plot, or a lot of to me, the draw of Taddy Bogle is just not focusing on clearing the hurdles, but making something that maybe bothers you and continues to bother you after you watch it.
Right. Do you think, any of you think that indie film is being watered down, kind of like organic, like the word organic, when you go in the grocery store? When it was first started to be used, it was, oh, well, these people are, growing them in their backyard. And of course it's going to be more because they're putting into it. Now, with no real FDA guidelines on what organic is, almost everything is organic. And indie film, it was hard to make. And like you said, you had to go to festivals. They weren't easy to find. And they were like pure art.
You had to figure out how to get an expensive camera. And now you can make it on your phone.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, do you think the proliferation of it is kind of, I don't know, making it more mainstream because of what you said?
I think the label of indie kind of got hijacked a while ago, though. I remember we were, to your organic point, we were at festivals in 2005, actually Cinevegas, and everything there was an indie movie, but that just meant it didn't have distribution yet. And I remember we were up against, in a competition category, with movies with, I don't remember the exact budget, but I remember hearing like $10 million went into this indie movie. I was like, well, I recognize like 4 or 5 actors in that movie. That's not the same thing. This isn't an indie movie. So I think and I was wrong, and just probably salty that we weren't going to win. But yeah, I think, it's funny what you can call an independent movie. And I think they even know that because when Firefly got introduced, I remember the program director saying, this is a true independent movie to the theater, to kind of prime them for the
lack of quality.
Oh, that's really interesting.
To hurt your ears.
Yeah, just for the fact that it's a bunch of nobodies, and it's it was done on their dime, and I felt like that was telling to me that there had to be kind of a separate announcement to say, okay, this is an indie movie, but we actually mean it this time.
That is really
I guess the whole thing with independent film, we explained to people. All independent films are B movies. Technically, but not all B movies are independent film. And we've explained in various episodes that, like one example, like Bubba Hotep is a movie that we love. Bruce Campbell, aged Elvis, come on, and a mummy.
Yeah. And it's a B movie. I mean, it wasn't, the studio didn't put it on their A list of stuff they want to put out in theaters and stuff.
No, they got minor distribution, but we're
going to write out a little tiny check and let Bruce Campbell do whatever he wants, and maybe it'll make some money.
It was by no means an independent film because somebody, said, here's the keys to the bank account, make us something that we can put out there and, make a little cash off of while we try to figure out our next Oscar winner.
There's a very specific playbook for an indie movie and putting that out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's like.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's the problems with the definition of independent from what,
Yeah.
from the major studios. Well, then tons of movies are independent, but independent from maybe financing outside of the core filmmakers. Maybe that's how we define independent. In our case.
Right. Yeah, and one of the things that I was thinking about as we were talking about the look of Taddy Bogle and, the kind of grainy, organic quality that it had. And I was thinking that other quote unquote indie movies that have a look that isn't that clean look, it almost goes to the far opposite side of the spectrum. It's a quirk of the movie rather than just being part of it itself. If you think about Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And then there's that the newer one with Willem Dafoe in The Lighthouse. I can't remember what
The Lighthouse.
Is it called The Lighthouse?
Yeah.
Right. Where there's a specific look to that movie that isn't what you normally see, and it's they just saw that line and were I'm just gonna lean right up against that. And that way because it doesn't look like every other movie, you know, that's the quirk. Like, that's the thing I'm going to sell my movie by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you guys had said too about the whole, you know, the color shift didn't go to teal, and, you know, that standard kind of horror thing, you know, by not doing that. When you guys are watching movies, right? Do you have your lens, like stuff that we've talked about, you know, certain looks, certain feels? Is there something that you look for or yearn for or hope for when you hit play that, you know, oh, I hope this, you know, brings ABC to me? I mean, what really does it for you in that respect? Or does it even matter? You know, you just like hardcore movie junkies.
You know, what I find myself hoping for is that it doesn't seem like the actors or the director are trying to emulate someone else. I want to see something unique. I want to see something. Yeah. It doesn't have to be new for the sake of new, but I don't want to feel when I'm watching a movie, and it can be indie, it can be big budget, whatever. I don't want to feel that it's a kind of a performance by committee or directing by committee, or, you know, I've got to move the camera here. Let's have this slow move during a dialogue scene when we really don't need that camera movement, when there's unmotivated camera movement just because that's the trend now. So I think I want to see something that doesn't feel like it's just caving to trends. I want to see something that is purposefully done to serve the story, that particular story.
Okay.
Yeah, I found that most movies I see today, they just don't feel authentic. And that's really, if something has to feel really authentic for me to even watch it all the way through. It's because it's like everything seems like an imitation of something else. Yeah. And I mean, it's I'm pretty negative about it, but I don't have a lot of time, you know. It's like if I'm 10 minutes in and I don't like something, it's just like, well, I'm going to go to bed.
Which is how a lot of people react to Teddy Bogle, probably. Yeah. Like, what the hell is this low budget garbage? Next.
Yeah. But it's authentic, goddammit.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can do something to help that, because that's part of the whole point of this podcast, is to get people to understand that these kinds of films have so much to offer. And this was the way of cinema back in the day. I mean, a major motion picture would get distribution in cities like Chicago and Milwaukee and Minneapolis and stuff. But then you're in Madison, which you think, hey, it's the capital, you know, and the distribution company's looking at it like, yeah, it's the capital. All right. You and your single screen theater, you know, so you don't get the big one. Like we have a Orpheum Theater downtown that, made its survival since the early 1920s, showing the stuff that, you know, someone was begging, please show my film. You know, you can take 80% of the ticket sales, man. Just, I made this, do it.
I think that's part of the thing I've noticed with festivals. I don't know if this is recently or if it's been like this since we started, you know, going to them, is that I wish more festivals cared about the actual movies and the story and talking about those. I think a lot of festivals, or the feeling has felt like we're going to do whatever we need to look legitimate and to grow as a festival. And I think a lot of films feel like that. And I remember, you know, I was probably 9 years old, but when we made movies that were basically a string of fight scenes, there would be like a new production company logo that Pete would create before every one of them. We'd have like trailers for other movies that we didn't actually make, just all in the service of like making it feel like a legitimate picture that you'd see in the movie at the theater, you know. And I think there's some pride, but also some healthy shame in looking back at that attitude that really makes you avoid anything that feels overly slick or like you are trying to like proving that you understand the trends and that you're in the big leagues, you know. So I think if we maybe zagged a little hard the other way, I look for something that surprises me now. That's probably the one thing that, like, if I feel like I can see where the scene's going or where the movie's going, I kind of turn it off. And one of my favorite things, I don't think people maybe meant this as a compliment, but I read a couple of reviews or got feedback on Teddy Boba that said, "Oh, I thought when this happened that this was going to happen," and I kind of like that it surprised people. That it didn't, what they thought or wanted to happen didn't happen. Yeah, I think we just wanted to make something that was surprising and not boring, and that felt a little bit realistic. Or because I mean, we watched a ton of movies. I remember we were watching horror movies when I was like 3. And we've seen it, and we kind of got sick of it. I think that drives a lot of our creative endeavors. Just like, okay, we've seen this. Wouldn't it be more interesting if that?
There was actually a festival. Didn't somebody complain there wasn't enough tits and ass in it or something?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Guy walked up to me. Yeah, said that.
That is something that we've noticed in indie horror. A lot of them rely heavily on nudity. You know,
almost like it's a prerequisite. Like you need to have 4 tits.
Yeah. And 3 bare asses, 1 full frontal, and it's almost like someone's in the background going, "I'm making an 80s tribute film," because that's all they had in the 80s. They were just, bouncing and bleeding. That's what it was about.
And like, is that really a horror movie? I mean, we joked about ending the movie with a crane shot pulling up, and Lindsay would be sitting on the back of an ambulance with a heavy blanket, being handed a cup of coffee by a patrol officer. You know what I mean? Just the standard horror movie ending where maybe she meets somebody and they fall in love. Like, weirdly, there's a lot of other kind of meet cute elements to horror movies, and all sorts of like moralizing and judgment that the villain carries out. And it's just like, well, what the hell is this? Is this a horror movie, or is this a fantasy for people watching this movie? Yeah, it's weird. It never feels gross and horrifying, and we kind of wanted to focus on that a little bit more.
When it comes to horror, based on for that whole feeling thing, what strikes you guys most? Practical effects or CGI? If you had to come down one side or the other, would you rather see a film laden with practical effects, or the digitally enhanced squibs?
I think Adam called this about 15 years ago with a song. One of the lyrics is, well, I'm gonna butcher it, but basically he made the point that all we're seeing now is cartoons on the screen and battle scenes, and there's something that just is very washed out when everything is CG and very well lit. So I think I'd always err on the side of practical, or not even showing it, which we did in Teddy Bogle, mostly out of not having any props ready at the time and not being good enough at it. But I actually think it kind of served the movie, because if we had a Rob Bottin in there with a bunch of gore, it would have changed the point of the story.
It would have,
Yeah,
it's fine. We definitely wanted to do practical effects with Teddy Bogle, and Joe and Chris were kind of in charge of that, coming up with the wounds and blood, and then Adam, you had your paint sprayer, and even had a wall that we were going to spray the paint up against. And like Joe said, we just weren't quite good enough at it yet. So I think we thought we would have a lot of great practical effects in the movie, but truthfully there aren't maybe any in the movie. But so what we ended up doing is Joe and I shot a bunch of blood squirts against green screens and threw the splatter up on the wall and stuff like that. And so that's what you see coming out of people's heads and stuff like that, where it's, I guess we shot it practically, and then added it and composited it. So, it's a digital effect, but we wanted it to look, natural, practical, even if it was a little bit messy, but truthfully, we just weren't good enough at it.
I would say practical effects that are composited. Like, my favorite scene, the one where the guy breaks into the basement and Pete hasn't been able to find anything, that weird scene. That was a composite shot of us making a brush hook with a foam head, and then me hitting. I was under the suit. Me hitting Pete in the head with it.
That was no. Well, wait.
Well, that was one of the shots. It was right.
That was a real axe. That shot. We put a piece of wood on put the piece of a big log where my head would be, and you actually took the real brush hook and chopped into it.
Yeah, so there was a nice feedback on my body, but then the other one was me. Or did we not use that shot? I hit you in the head with a foam cover one. Accidentally hit your hand with the wooden part.
Right. And then it was me snapping my head down to try to match the shot. Yeah.
And then the blood that we had recorded in our parents' garage.
Yeah.
Kind of sprang up back onto the concrete wall.
But we did, was it you or Chris who built the brush hook, the foam brush hook?
I think that was Chris.
Okay, yeah. So we had a stand-in foam brush hook that we used for a lot of the shots, which was very helpful.
Yeah.
So talking about these kind of, behind the scenes, how you did the scenes makes me wonder, because you know what they say, the making of the movie is often more interesting than the movie, right?
Yeah.
The stories behind it. So what are some good, what are some fun production stories?
Well, the production wasn't fun at all. So
it was really, it was horrible. It was really hard.
Probably the worst 10 days of my life. It was just hard. Like Adam kind of hinted at, we were not prepared. We didn't have spreadsheets. We were getting people to sign up for the movie at the last minute. We didn't storyboard anything. We, we're shooting a lot of it at night, outdoors, very little sleep, lots of frustration.
We had a shot list. I think there was a shot list technically.
Did we?
Technically.
I mean, it's funny when you get people who aren't trained to do this stuff and you think, well, could you run down those stairs? And I think, well, sure, but I'm wearing, the Taddy Bowl was wearing these like big rubber black boots. I don't know if you can tell, but they're paratrooper boots. And we thought, okay, that looks cool and old. But like I had to run down concrete stairs and I rolled my ankle like 3 or 4 steps in a row. And so there's all these fun little things like you find yourself like running downstairs, falling into walls, throwing people through closet doors. And honestly, it wasn't like breakaway wood. We scored it on the other side so that it might give away a little bit easier.
Oh,
right. And stained it. Yeah. But then we're like, hey, Laura, we're going to just throw you through this closet, fingers crossed.
Oh my God.
That you don't bounce back.
Exactly. Like, don't try to grab at anything. And I mean, if she didn't know how to fall, or I didn't just launch her through the closet door, I mean, she could easily have been punctured or scraped or whatever. So a lot of it was just kind of us crossing our fingers and just doing it.
Yeah. Wow. We got lucky.
There's kind of a funny story about the death scene, Pete's death scene in the guest cabin basement. We went up there later to shoot it. Was it like a month later, or was it a couple of weeks?
And we got in October.
Yeah, so we drove all the way up. It was 2 hours away from where we lived, and we got there to shoot this scene. And we had our hollow door that Joe was going to chop through with the axe. And it was going to be backlit, and the room was going to be foggy, so you're going to see rays of light as he chopped through it. And then we realized we forgot the fucking fog machine. So we had to go out, and we bought a pack of Marlboro Reds. And Joe, Pete, and I we had 3 cigarettes apiece in our mouth, and we were just smoking up the basement. That was our fog machine for that. For that setup.
Oh, we were so sick after that. Yeah.
Oh man.
And we had been shooting. I mean, we had like the weekend to get a bunch of pickup shots. So I think like we hadn't been sleeping for a day and a half, and it would just be like, okay, take a bunch of rips off these 3 cigarettes, blow them out. Okay, and then quick, Joe, pull down your leather mask, shut the door, pick up an axe, and then just wail on this thing, and then bust it open, and then look
let's
at
start.
Yeah, and then let's do another one. Let's do another take.
Yeah.
Man.
that was not fun.
I got an arrow in the leg. That was fun.
A real arrow?
The razor tip arrowheads that Joe screws onto the arrow. He actually had those.
Yeah.
When we were filming the scene when the Taddy Bogle is racing at him and he turns around and falls into a mud puddle. Well, the arrow went right into his leg.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It wasn't too bad. It was more of a slice, but those were real hunting tips, and they were brand new, and it just sliced right through my jeans. And because in that shot I have to turn, slip, fall in the mud, and then rise back up and shoot the arrow. So it's not like we could use fake tips, or so we told ourselves.
that standard definition, filming at pitch black at night's really going to pick up that arrowhead.
We're not going to win the Oscar, okay, if we have fake tips. So yeah, I fell in there because it looks pathetic in one of the shots. I kind of fall in there and I go,
it's the shot. It's the shot that's in the movie.
Yeah, okay. I think
it has to be. You have to pay tribute to the injury by putting it in there.
Really leaning into the gritty realism.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Yeah. And then other than that, there are just lots of little stories. Like, we shot this in, was it 2007 on a mini DV camera. So they did have big chunky batteries. Those ran out. I think somebody had to drive into whatever the slightly bigger town to a Best Buy to get a backup battery. We shot entire nighttime sequences where the flashlight was dying, and then we, later look at it and be like, yeah, this whole sequence just kind of sucks. What the hell are we going to do now? We're going to reshoot this.
We put a flashlight in the bigger flashlight so that it can still have light because it ran out. The batteries ran out, and there was once, we didn't quite know, where all the locations would be. There was one scene where Joe and Rob are tracking the Taddy Bogle kind of after they turn the tables and they start chasing the Taddy Bogle. Well, trying to find a kind of a marshy area where the Taddy Bogle could potentially be underwater or have escaped or anything. But the marsh had kind of dried out. And so Joe and Rob, I don't know why we even did this, but we had them at one point crawling on their stomachs through the mud, talking to each other seriously, saying, "Where do you think he went?" With this huge mud field in front of them, and it was just freaking ridiculous. And we ultimately found a stream that was actually closer to our houses, closer to Minneapolis, where we shot it in the hours before people had to leave town. Yeah. Sorry, what, Chris?
Go ahead, Chris. Come on.
Chris, are you there? I see you.
I was just going to say, I believe generally, you can't hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we hear you.
Chris.
He waited until we said, "We can hear you," and then he was like, haha.
Chris, go.
You guys can hear me?
Yes, go.
Yeah.
Yep. You better go right now.
Okay, I was just going to say that in general, we were...
He's just messing with us now.
Yeah.
He muted himself. Why did he do that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Whatever. But yeah, there are little things like that. Rob and I were crawling forearm over forearm. And you look at the footage and it is just kind of funny because it started raining and it was like filled with nettles. So it felt like
even better.
The consistency of like a quiche, that we're crawling through. And the dialogue in the script is like, "Do you see any tracks?" So and we're just sitting there. Someone's got a generator. It starts raining, and we're just it's maybe like 2 or 4 in the morning. I don't remember. And so there's a lot of trial and error, and part of that's because we got like 16 people to just kind of be in it, and thought, okay, well, while we have everyone here, a captive audience, so let's just kind of shoot a bunch of stuff because we're not coming back here and doing this. And I think we thought if we shoot it quickly, then we have less to worry about in post, and it'll go very quickly. It'll be a breeze, which is the opposite of what's
Yep. It's funny.
And we poached that location.
Yeah.
You poached it? Did you just
guerrilla
film?
Is the statute of limitations up on that? Can we get in trouble for that?
It's fine. No one knows where it actually is.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
Yeah, we've talked to a few people who've done guerrilla filming. and like
that's pretty much what we've done. I don't think we've ever, at least on any of the features we completed, we all just kind of like asked if we could shoot places, shooting without permission, saying thanks very much, and then leaving.
Well,
mostly permission.
That's very much independent.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to the basement scene, I just want to say, and I mentioned it in the episode, all the work you guys put into that was brilliant, because the one thing, this is my favorite scene of the movie, because it put on its ass all the other films that have these long drawn out, pleading, begging, bargaining kind of things. I love the fact that he gets down there. He's desperate. He's just, anything to try and defend himself. And then there's that moment where it's like, well, I don't have my stick. There's nothing else, not even a, wet floor sign, and shit's real. And this is happening. And all there was is, no, wait, please. And done. The swiftness and ruthlessness of that was so welcome.
It was intense.
It was. Yeah. It just.
That's good to hear.
What's that?
So that's really good to hear. I mean, part of that is we've never seen. We talked about that idea and we just got fascinated because we've never seen that kind of interaction in a movie, and of course that would happen. I mean,
well, yeah,
that's part of the thing. These characters think, or everyone likes to think that they'd be, a lion charging into the face of danger, but no, you wouldn't. You'd be terrified.
No, Wait, you give up. It's like denial of the reality that's in front of you. Like, no, this can't be it. This can't be it. I'm going to resort to just whatever's worked in the past. Please, no.
Yeah.
And then done.
Yeah.
Right.
And that scene for me is kind of like it also is like the deer stand scene where I love when the Taddy Bogle, you see like the human side where he can't get up in the deer stand and he's just pathetically throwing the knife, just trying to get him.
That's kind of the most playful he gets. I always thought that was a creepy scene because it's the first time the Taddy Bogle's kind of taking his time and he's weighing the knife and weighing the amount of effort it might take to wait this guy out or kill him. And then he just hears, like a rabid dog or something. He hears a noise calling him away, and he's like, okay, well, now I'm going after this thing. Like, he gets a little, you can tell a little bit, like after he kills the woman who's running down the driveway, he kind of gets a little trot going. You can see him getting into his groove. And, it's a really weird, small moment, but I like that because it seemed like you don't know what this guy is, but the way he's kind of playing with this knife and chucking it just to see if it works, that to me that was creepy.
It was, and I
liked that moment a lot.
It was funny, yeah, because like you said, I got the sense of he threw it, and then all of a sudden something else happens, and like, well, this is no longer interesting to me.
Yeah,
this is way more time than I want to spend on this situation. I can go draw blood over here. My favorite fun feeling scene was when they were trying to get the car off the barricade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And lit up by the taillights, here comes Taddy Bogle just walking across like and I said I think it's in the episode, like he's just going from the detergent aisle to the garbage bag aisle, like
he's on the clock at that point. Exactly.
Who was in there at that point? Who was Taddy Bogle for that?
That was me.
So Joe was Taddy Bogle whenever he's not in the scene. And then whenever Joe was in a scene, we had to find, someone else. In the field, it was Chris. In the guest cabin, it was Jeff Makepeace, a friend of ours who's not in any other part of the movie. So, yeah, Joe. And at the end, it was Tom Shaw, the father of one of the other actors in the movie. So we just kind of, it's like, who's available? Who's generally the shape that we need right now. So,
Tom Shaw gave up. Oh, sorry, Chris.
No, it's Joe, actually.
Oh, sorry, Joe. Double sorry.
Yeah. I was just going to say it's funny because that was all just by necessity, but if you wanted to get meta, Jeff is the first time we see the Taddy Bogle, and he's almost 6'3", so when he comes in and he's just towering over everybody, that's kind of realistic. I'm about, 5'10", 5'11", and then Tom Shaw at the very end is maybe 5'8". So the Taddy Bogle actually, if you think about it, gets shorter and shorter and more.
Yeah, and you forgot Chris. Chris is what, 5'9",
Yeah,
so,
like that.
It does get short. Taddy Bogle does get shorter and shorter throughout the film.
Yeah, I mean that's all just incidental, but if you wanted to get mythical about this,
we thought that out in advance.
We'll sell it.
Yeah.
Chris, do you want to talk about? Can you talk about pulling Tom Shaw down with the rope?
That was me, actually. I think.
Oh, what?
I think so.
Oh, one of you. No, it's probably whatever.
Oh, Chris had his hands full of the. Chris was the one who squashed the blood or the composite shot.
So
yes.
Okay. Well, Pete, you can talk about that, or I will.
I'll start it. You could. Yeah. So we at the very end when the Taddy Bogle meets his demise, it gets his head caved in with a sledgehammer, and we couldn't get the fall right. We tried it at first with just saying, all right, let's snap your head down and then fall, turn, and then pretend to get hit. And there are actually, some outtakes at the end, and you can see how pathetic that looked. So we're like, okay, what are we going to do? And so we came up with the idea where, Joe, then you can finish the story.
We found, just because it looked cool, like a welder's belt or something that if you look closely, the Taddy Bogle's wearing kind of around his leather apron through most of the movie. And it has like a metal loop on the back of it underneath the jacket part. And I tied a nylon rope to that. And I kind of I laid on the floor in that kitchen. And with my feet braced against cupboards, like right when the hammer came down, I basically yanked as hard as I could. And so that the guy would just kind of get driven down with a little bit more force, because it's funny. We just assumed that everyone grew up filming fight scenes and knew how to take a punch and knew how to fall and stuff, but people don't. And it was, again, like 2 or 3 in the morning, and we're like, wow, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We're asking this, like, guy in his 50s to take a harder tumble onto the wooden floor. And you can tell he's like, I think he said, like, I'll give you one more and that's it, after we had done this a few times. Yeah, so I think on that last one, we're like, all right, this is it. And I think I tried to win like a tug of war or something. We just pulled him down and he, fell on top of me, and it was like, all right, that's it. And then he drove away.
Yeah. Excellent. Oh, yes, indie filmmaking at its finest. All the little things. But, that's what makes it great. Taddy Bogle was great. The things that you guys did, even, out of necessity, everything really worked for this. And
thank you.
I'm sure listeners, when they go check it out, are going to feel the same, because it's just refreshing. It really cleansed the palate, because we've had some stinkers in recent weeks, and that we're really excited about, and we watch and we're like, oh,
yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, one thing we talked about for, it feels like months, but it was when Pete was editing and going from like kind of first cut to second one, it was like the runtime was very much like a tweener. It was like, well, it's 72 minutes, or I think originally, maybe Pete, I don't remember, it's like a 78-minute cut, and it was like, this is way too much just kind of exposition, and we don't need an ending after the guy dies and all this stuff. So we cut out all the stuff that we didn't like a lot, and it was like 60 minutes, or I don't know, 65 or whatever it was, Pete. And we were like, we like this better now, but we don't know where it belongs. And that was kind of before, I don't know, we just thought this has to be a feature. This has to show at festivals. It has to be a legitimate feature film. And
because that's what we make. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it was that old way of thinking, not to give ourselves too much credit, but we were like, this doesn't feel like a legitimate big time premiere. So what are we going to do? But now I actually am quite proud of the fact that we just cut out what didn't work, and if it's 60 minutes, that's fine. Hopefully it all ties together and it's all worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth the time. Because, I mean, when somebody recommends like a TV series now, like, oh yeah, just give this 4 episodes. It's like, what? I'm not going to give 4 hours of my time to every new thing.
It's so funny you said that. That's our big thing. When we see something new, we have a 3-episode rule. It's like, okay, if by the 3rd episode I'm not fully, salivating over this, it's time to run, because it is almost a clumsy formula.
Yeah.
Getting into stuff, it's like the pilot is just this, how much shit can you throw at an audience to explain everything that's going on? It's almost like, does nobody fucking think for themselves anymore?
Yeah.
Can they not put this shit together? You got to explain it. Well, there went 42 minutes. All right. So next week, let's see if we can get to like the story part. And then by the 3rd episode, maybe they'll put the 2 together. I've got enough information in my kit that I can now engage. But yeah, it's
well, yeah. But to be fair, sometimes they don't make it the full 3 even.
Yeah.
No. There's some that, you get 20 minutes in and you're like, oh, This came right out of the textbook. Nope, not interested.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's funny because I sometimes I feel guilty now. Like, I always used to watch things the whole way through, and I just find myself giving up 12 minutes into something. But yeah, that's because movies used to be 90 minutes. You know, you knew what you were getting into, and then it was over. And
so you're not a fan of these 3-hour and 45-minute CGI fests that are the Marvel films?
I am kind of.
Yeah.
I've stayed away. I
haven't seen any.
I liked Spider-Man, the first remake. I like certain parts of them, but yeah, I mean, mostly I actually just watched Infinity War and Endgame the other week, and I thought this just kind of does nothing. It doesn't really do anything to me, and that to me is that's a worse movie than something that's like truly a B movie or truly terrible, because I don't know, just so many resources went into it, and it took up so much time.
I know, and it's not. We've had this discussion where there's nothing in there that's story. See, we're comic book people, and Comic-Con geeks. And
I don't know
everything.
if you can tell, we're huge nerds.
And the films
I'll take your word for it.
were exciting because it was a way to share with our daughter a new, outside of the comic books kind of thing. So, it's coming to the screen. This will be fun. But they just get so unbearably long, and they don't have any story,
and no consequences. That to me, that's something that totally killed that whole run. I mean, I think
like destroying an entire city,
like killing half the population, and then that's no big deal. We'll just
I mean, I think that we were a little obsessive with story whenever we'd set out to make something. I think maybe we think too much about that, like making sure the story makes sense, and then also I feel like we are. I've always been very mindful of what the audience, giving them something worth watching, So part of that to me is setting up the stakes, and then, being held accountable, like holding them accountable to those stakes. I just feel like anything less is really showing some disrespect to an audience. So
how dare you? How dare you practice the art of storycraft? And you know what? That is exactly what's missing with all this stuff. The formulaic, storycraft isn't all exposition and backstory. It's not, 90 solid minutes of CGI with no conversation. But that's Hollywood. That's the big boys love that stuff. And jumping way back to the indies these days, everyone's trying to tick those boxes to, rub shoulders. They want to be invited to the red carpet thing where they have real photographers and not Aunt Erda with her little Kodak. I'm so proud of you.
I also wonder if
parties too.
If people don't even know why they like some things. Like, I mean, Game of Thrones, if you guys watched it, part of the reason I think that got really good is exactly because you thought you knew who the leaders were, who the main players were, and then they just get killed over and over. And that void that gets you a little bit excited about, well, what the hell's going to happen now? And, there could be a lot more of that.
We called it the Walking Dead syndrome, because Walking Dead was doing that for quite a while. You just, anytime you feel happy for someone, it's like, oh, God damn it, they're smiling. They're not going to make it out of this episode. They had a happy moment. I feel so good for them. And then sure enough, thwack, out of nowhere, they're killing headliners left and right. And that's what made Game of Thrones fun.
Well, I think in Game of Thrones, though, a lot of them didn't even get a happy moment before that.
Yeah, no, that was a pretty morose setting all the way around.
I think that's why we liked killing Pete in the movie too. I mean, just because it seems clear at some point when you're watching, like, okay, this is the guy who's going to make it through, or make it to the very end, or at least get his. He's kind of a little bit sheepish in the beginning, so
he was scared.
Himself. So he's going to find his courage.
He's going to find his courage. Yeah. No. He's going to die begging.
Well, and the fact that you guys didn't have any nudity, it made it hard to pick out if a woman was going to make it, because that's the formula too. Everyone's running around tits out, except the one in the triple layer cardigan. She's the one who's going to make it, right? Yeah. She's not even going to show ankle.
Right. The moralizing. the reason Rob and Joe are running through the woods is because the field that they get cell reception in is across the highway through a different set of woods, and that's the same field that they were in the opening of the movie where Rob finally gets it. So, yeah, you know, it's funny listening to your podcast on it. It became clear to me that we're not famous, and so like just seeing us for 30 seconds on the screen is not enough to like remember. Oh, that's this guy. Like if we're nobodies, it's harder to remember who we are and the context and whether or not it's cool that these two characters are now paired off in the woods somewhere.
Especially with that many characters,
yeah. Well, and
I would say.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to point out that I was surprised. You guys actually got quite a bit. I mean, you picked up on like most of, you know. I was proud of you guys.
Yeah, I was too. Me too.
Thank you.
It felt like it had an amount of like thought and intent that really surprised that I think we kind of hoped that people would have while watching it, but it just, you know, I feel like it's too much to expect most of the time.
Well, we watch movies hard, and we talk about a lot of times it's not, you know, your fault, it's not the writer's fault, it's not the director's fault. We miss something because we're taking notes. I mean, the whole thing is to get it right now, not watch it and then reminisce over it. Afterwards,
because we might miss something. We might like have something slip our minds,
and there's a lot of times I'll miss little things like names or, you know, certain look because I'm typing away, and you don't hear it.
Yeah,
you know.
The one thing I think you missed was when the reason Pete goes up into the deer stand is because the flashlight runs out of batteries, and there's a flashlight in the bear bag.
Right.
So he didn't just
I knew that. I don't think
like for convenience.
Just for fun.
Well, I think that was in my notes. We take separate notes and then we mush them together, and sometimes we miss little bits because we don't get the exact same things. We word it differently.
Well, because Jimmy typically writes like, this is what's happening, and then he'll break off for his thoughts, and I just kind of write this like stream of thought of consciousness. Those are my notes.
And it usually works. Yeah, but I did catch the bear bag because I remember that being up there, and then he pulled the light out. But that was
well, I missed it.
Yeah, that's all right.
My bad.
You got names I didn't catch because I was too busy.
Also, I'll bring up one more example of something with depth if you want to create it. The pontoon scene. You guys remember when you were talking about it, you thought, okay, if that was mine, I would vet that list. There's no way that this mix of people is together. But you said there's no way that guy's coming up, right?
Who?
He wouldn't have them both.
He's the bull in the china shop, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting, like, you said, like, why would that guy have everyone up there? And I like to think that the host was thinking, if we get everyone away from society and onto a pontoon where we're grilling food and just hanging out, then we'll all get along. And people just seem to find a way to get into conflict with each other, even if we're totally removed from...
I buy that. Yeah. See, one thing about us, and listeners will understand, is we're not big crowd people. So if I was having a party, that's how I see it through my lens. Be like, there's no way that shit would happen at my party because I'm not having it. I'm on vacation. This is a hard-fought, hard-earned, free time moment. And the last thing I'm going to have is any number of people on lists that we have. They're like, nope, that's not the one you invite to the party. Nope, that's not the one you bring to dinner, kind of thing.
But we're, not everyone sees things through the same lens. I totally get that.
But we get it, because there's a lot of instances in films where people of different backgrounds and views come together.
Also, that happens in real life sometimes. Sometimes you go to a get-together and you're like, oh, I don't know this person. And then suddenly you hear a comment or a couple comments. You're like, oh, and you're suddenly asking, who do they know? Are they friends of who? And that stuff kind of happens. And maybe even that, makes you get suspicious of one or two of the people on the boat as the movie goes. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was just a good scene to instantly make things very tense and uncomfortable.
Well, and we did wonder, is this one of those instances where is it somebody here?
Right.
Because you didn't have that formulaic introduction of who, you know, there's going to be a murderer and all this, blah, 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 blah. You know, I was like, well, is one of these guys really just that into their opinion? They're just going to snap and go batshit, you know? And then, like I said, it was just, I guess not, because this guy just rolled through the door and whack, we're in.
When you watched it, did you think, oh, I bet it's this person? Like, how much of your energy did you devote to trying to figure out the movie, or did you not really? Or like who was the real guy? Who was the real killer?
I don't know that I was trying to figure out who was the real killer. I think I was trying to figure out, like, where is he going to go next? You know, is he going to go in this cabin with all these people who are, like, you know, the survivors that were not in the, you know.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, I was looking at characters. Is this going to be one of them doing it? And when he came in for a little while after that, I was, okay, so who are we not seeing? You know, that kind of thing.
Right.
You know,
he's the situation.
Yeah, he is hardcore. This isn't like Jason where he kills and then vanishes into the fucking ether for however long it takes till he needs to kill again. He's stomping through and killing. They're screaming and everything. Mm-hmm. But then I just got so engrossed in him killing and the screaming. I didn't care. I was like, oh, I was having so much fun with the unpolished, you know, the unbuffed version of someone going through just tearing people up and their reactions. And, you know, what are we going to do? We'll grab steak knives because that's all we fucking got, you know, and he's however tall and coming through with an axe. It's this or nothing, man. You know, so yeah, I stopped looking for who was not getting camera time in critical moments. I was just waiting for the next, where's he going to be kind of thing.
Yeah. I was liking those little moments throughout the film that were very realistic in how people were reacting to the situation. Like the guy in the bathroom who's just frozen.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, just
right.
Like when I first saw him, because he's there and then it, you know, cuts away and there's some killing and then it's back to him. And the first time I was like, what is he doing?
Yeah, to be honest, I was always worried about that moment. I remember thinking, like, why did we not have him hiding in the shower or something? You know, what is he doing there? And then I heard from a couple of people like, oh, no, I love that part. It's so realistic that he's just frozen. And I was thinking, okay, good.
It's very raw. Very raw. You know, I mean, because that's the thing. When something that, you know, people lose their shit.
Right? Like, have you ever...
And just freeze. And I loved how... Taddy Bogle just kind of walks by and is like, oh, nope, not going to forget you.
Yeah.
Like if you've ever had a dream where you were so terrified that you couldn't scream even, like you open your mouth to scream and you can't even make a sound, that kind of frozen, that, you know, people really identify with that.
It's hardwired. When you see a predator, you freeze so it doesn't see you. That's kind of what he was doing.
Yeah.
Yep. It worked. Too, yeah, because that was nice try, man.
Yeah, and then he dies off camera. We also thought he was making too tough of a face, you know, because he was supposed to kind of look stunned and scared, and he's doing kind of this squaring up look. So I think I wondered, are people going to be disappointed that they don't get a fight scene between the tough guy and the killer?
Right.
But I kind of like that it just, you know, was gurgling noises off screen and then he's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. We bought it.
Excellent.
All of it. Oh man. Well, Taddy Bogle needs to be seen. Needs to be, find it wherever you can, people. You can find it on Prime, but if it's anywhere else out there, grab it. It's
on Amazon Prime and it's also on Vimeo.
Okay, there we go. Prime and Vimeo. Go find it. Share it. You know, get it out there. I don't know if it'll warrant or push these guys into making a sequel, but you know, horror fans should love this. I mean, just the raw nature of it is so much worth the sitting. You know, kick back, turn out the lights, and get into it.
Yeah.
And let's see. Chris.
We lost Chris.
Chris, he's been coming and going. I think he's in that wobbly area. So
it's okay.
let him know for us that we so much appreciate him being on. And yeah.
This has been really fun. I've loved hearing all your like stories and yeah.
And if he comes down this way with that mask, he will buy him lunch, clearly.
Yeah. He might take you up on that. Yeah. Well, thank you. This was a lot of fun for us as well to revisit it. And it's been a while, and it's always nice to hear someone who sees it and appreciates the work that went into it. And as Adam mentioned earlier, it seems like a lot of people are turned off by the movie, but there are those people out there who see it and appreciate it. So thank you for giving it some attention.
Oh, absolutely. And, keep in touch. Let us know when you've got a milestone and, something's coming. More than happy to put that out there, because that's, again, part of what we want to do is celebrate this creation stuff, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
We will.
Maybe when the other two are up and streaming, if you guys like them, do a follow-up.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If we can see it, we're game, and we would definitely like to talk about it. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the problem. I've had a few people reach out and say, "Hey, I made this movie. Okay, where is it?" Well, I'm like, "Do you even have it on a file?" Well,
in a drawer.
I can't help you, man.
Yeah.
All right.
It's going to be good. I have a movie idea. That's what I meant. I have an idea.
Yep. There we go.
Awesome.
All right. So this has been Pete Marcy, Joe Marcy, Adam Anderson, and Chris Marcy, who's now back just in time to say goodbye. Failureboys Productions, Taddy Bogle. Check the show links, folks. I'm going to put stuff up for all the information on other projects, as well as links to go see these. So always check show notes. Thank you guys again.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
That was the magnificent group that makes up the Failureboys Productions. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.
And after we ended the interview, we went for like a half an hour.
Yeah, just kept talking
to them.
Yeah, they were so delightful to talk to, and I almost kind of wish we had been recording for that last half an hour, because it was just.
I know, it was a lot of fun stuff.
But that's all right.
Yeah, and we got some concept art.
Yes.
That Chris sent us the next day. It's really good stuff.
Yeah.
And it was really great.
Mm-hmm.
So we hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and follow them. The links are all in the episode notes.
Yep.
Show notes.
Yep. Watch Attack of the Taddy Bogle. We can say it correctly now.
Yeah.
Watch it, and share it, and get people to watch it. I mean, these guys are really great, and we're going to try and do everything we can to
encourage them to make more stuff.
Yeah, man, I would love to see a second chapter, Son of the Taddy Bogle or something. And while you're at it, go ahead and while you're listening, whatever you're listening on, go ahead and give us a rating, give us a review, click like, click share, click subscribe, whatever buttons you've got, use them.
Yeah. Go visit our website, lordsofmisruleproductions.com.
Yep.
You can find all of our previous episodes there, along with our blog, links to where you can find the podcast on other platforms if you want to subscribe on multiple platforms.
There you go. Go ahead and do that. Also a button to our Patreon page.
Yep.
And check that out. If you like what's going on, like what we're doing, become a patron. Get this rolling. And, as time goes on, we are going to grow this into some bigger things. I mean, we really want to, but got to have those patrons.
Yes.
That's just the sad fact.
So also go visit stage32.com.
Yes.
If you want to make connections, you want to, get a team together, make a production company, make some films,
or just talk to people, get advice. If you're anything having to do with movies, from screenwriting to acting, directing, producing, music. I mean, every element there is represented. And, more than anything, you can talk with your peers,
right?
Especially if you're in an area where you don't have any to speak of, if you're in, I don't know, the emptiest place in Oklahoma, and there's 14 people in your unincorporated township, Stage 32 is for you.
It is. And you know what? If you go on there and you're real sleuthy, you can probably find us and send us a request.
We're making it hard deliberately. Yeah. Search us out, do some digging. Do the work.
Yeah. Or you can follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, I guess, or do both. Do all the things.
Well, and Instagram. If for those of you who might be listening and prefer YouTube, all episodes are up on YouTube. Link to that is also on the website.
Yeah, Jim works really hard to get them up there on YouTube.
Now, and it's just a still shot, folks. We don't do the whole YouTube thing. We don't video the podcasts.
No, but you know what?
Maybe,
if we were to get lots of patrons,
right?
We could be tempted.
Well, absolutely.
To video our podcasts.
Yeah, we can do that, but one thing at a time.
Yep, one thing at a time.
All right. Well, I think this has been a fantastic launch so far into 2020.
Oh, for sure.
Got some great interviews. We've had mostly great movies.
They can't all be wonderful.
Well, we're not going to like everything. Nobody likes everything.
That's true.
But next week is a wonderful movie, non-horror.
Yeah.
Usually, we don't usually prod that or present that, but it's actually a family film, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun, and I hope you catch that one too, especially if you've got kids.
It's another one of those real delightful surprises.
Yes. You know what? I almost feel like canceling our subscriptions to Netflix and Hulu because we're finding everything in the vaults of Prime.
I know.
And it's funny because Netflix is this is what we've got. Bam. In your face.
I know.
There's no hidden treasures. Prime takes us a fucking hour sometimes to find stuff. Go through, and what's this one? Nah, but then that's a whole separate, you might also list on the bottom.
I know.
And then, we said it many times before, 8 layers deep, a treasure.
Indeed. Yeah. So with that, I think we'll say goodbye for this episode, and we'll catch you next week.
All right. Later, B-Siders.
Bye.